Hello there, this is Critical from Critical Media. Just taking a look at the Marvel Epic Collection release of Star Wars Dark Empire. This is a part of the Legends run that they've been releasing specifically for New Republic. They've done this for other brands like the Old Republic, Rebellion, and even Legacy. Now, this story originally comes from the Dark Horse Comics line. This was actually originally written in 1992 up until 1994. And this particular story encompasses Dark Empire 2, and Empire's End, which is not as long as the others. The first two series are six issues apiece. Empire's End is only about two. But anywho, it just serves as a conclusion, so I like that they added it here. Now, this story takes place 6 years after Return of the Jedi. If you're familiar with the Thrawn trilogy, which also took place after Return of the Jedi, Thrawn trilogy was 4 years out, whereas this is 6 years out. So between Thrawn and Dark Empire, it's just 2 years. The one major takeaway to take from that story is that actually Leia was pregnant with Han and Leia's first set of children. They're twins, Jada and Jason. And in this book, actually, she's pregnant with their third child, Anakin Solo. Why am I bringing that up? Because that will actually be a part of the plot to this story. Now, of course, I'm thankful that Marvel did release this because they also included a little bit more than just the Dark Empire story. So I have just bookmarked the end of the Dark Empire story. And thankfully, they did include a lot more meat to this book. So they included things like the Star Wars Tales that ran from like 2002 to like 2006 or 8, I believe. And also, they included like a compendium from the Rogue Squadron compendium. Just a little bunch of factoids. So, how does the story play? Now, in this case, Dark Empire, in a nutshell, if you're very familiar with the Rise of Skywalker scenario, this was done back in the 90s, even before the prequels. So you'll actually discover a lot of things that Disney has lent itself on for canon actually come from a lot of Legends material. Yes, this is a Legends book. But the thing is, this to me, this and the Thrawn trilogy before it, really did serve as my own episode 7, 8, 9 before Disney took a crack at it. Have your own opinions about the movies. Sure, I won't go into too much detail about those. Let's just talk about the book. But one thing I will talk about a lot is the parallels, perhaps. Now, the story is the Emperor has returned. Nearly inexplicable. Sound familiar? And how has he come back? He's come back through cloning methods. So he has like basically a bunch of vats in a lab, and he just transfers his essence from one empty shell into the other. The problem, though, is because of, I guess, his dark force energy, it tends to degrade these clone bodies faster and faster and faster the more time he does it. So he's looking for a proper force sensitive host, a powerful force sensitive host to embody. So this is when Luke starts, sensing his presence and realizes something has to be done. And his plan to do so is a very drastic one. His ambition is to basically become the Emperor's apprentice, kind of like how he wanted to be the apprentice in Return of the Jedi, and take him down from within. But of course, not all things are equal. Just to also preface this, at this point, Leia is a Jedi Knight. She was trained by Luke. She's very powerful. She's wise. But the best part about her is she was already strong to begin with, even before this. So a lot of that charisma, intelligence, and spunkiness, and just straightforward courageousness, she still has all that on top of being a Jedi. Now, throughout this story, yes, you're going to go through a lot of different steps, but it does play out very similarly to a film. Now, yes, you're introduced to some new characters, but we'll get into that in a second. Firstly, I just want to talk about the art. Now, and some people are kind of divisive about this, but personally, I love the fact that almost every panel has kind of a color motif. So you can kind of notice it even on this page where you see like very indicated movements here, like fuchsia, Of course, just a kind of an aqua here and a light green. And they keep in that sense. It almost gives it kind of a classic feel and almost timeless feel in that sense. But I bookmarked this page mainly to show you that throughout this book, there's a lot of Luke mirroring his father's appearance, or that I guess what's the word? The darkness that his father has. After all, he will be kind of succumbing to the dark side a bit in this. But I love how often they do it and how well it's done. So even the very first appearance of Luke, this is it. You wouldn't even think it's Luke at first. Looking at that head, it almost looks like Vader's helmet. But as you progress, you discover, yes, it is in fact Luke coming out of the cave. And like a boss, there's an AT-AT there, or AT-AT. I prefer AT-AT. That's just me. But yes, it doesn't seem to matter that he's the only man standing against it. It shoots against him, doesn't do anything. All he has to do is wave his hand and, just like that, say goodnight to the bad guy. But throughout the book, and once again, another example of these color motifs, you get this more and more impression of like there's something off about Luke, right? And Leia will be definitely a key to how he returns. Now, another little preview here is in every Star Wars, there will always be some sort of planet buster, some sort of weapon that'll threaten the galaxy, and this is no different. Although this is kind of an interesting story. These are called World Devastators, and they may seem familiar to you. Now, the whole point of the machines is instead of a Death Star or something like that, these actually land on the planet and just rip out all the resources of the world and basically leave it barren and an empty crust, essentially. So either way, this actually might be even worse than the Death Star because it's a slow burning death, not to mention they're profiting off of the destruction. But why these might, maybe bode some memories. If you ever played Star Wars Rogue Squadron, the one on the Nintendo 64, the very last level of the game was the Battle of Mon Cala, or Mon Calamari. And that is actually what's happening on these pages. It's the Battle of Mon Calamari. So this is actually where the video game sourced that event. And it was Wedge Antilles at the time, leader of course, Rogue Squadron at the time. He's actually a much bigger deal at this point. But I just thought I'd like to highlight that. Disney is even borrowed from this canon. These are actually canon now. If you watch the show Star Wars Rebels, these were actually showcased in the final season. The main planet of the show, Lothal, it was actually being ravaged by these machines. Mind you, the Empire didn't own them. They were more private enterprise at that point. But throughout the book, you have Yan Duursema's work on display. Awesome panels. I'm just bringing you to another page where, once again, it's that beautiful, like, iconography where it's like Vader, of course, on one side. Even Leia assumes it's him. And as you see, it's actually Luke. And not only that, it's this cryptic view of Luke. Once again, because unfortunately he's being succumbed by the dark side because he's trying to infiltrate Palpatine, he's slipping more and more, unfortunately. I won't go into how he's rescued or whatnot. I'll leave that to you to read. Some new characters for the story, and these are actually great for knowing the whole backstory of Han Solo. They do visit the planet Nar Shaddaa, which is basically a smuggler's planet or moon, where it's basically Tatooine. It's a more busier, almost Coruscant version of Tatooine. It's just a criminal's world. And basically you'll meet Shugninx, who's basically like a chop shop manager where, if you ever wondered how Han got all these specialized modified parts, he often acquired it through black market deals, and this is exactly the guy you talk to for it. This lovely lady here is Salazen, and basically she kind of acts like, or she's led to be believed as a past lover of Han, although you don't really get confirmation yes or no. Very similar, once again, to what Disney has done in the comics with the character Sana Starros, who basically is the former wife of Han, although that's like up in the air as well. But I just find that interesting. Another parallel you find from Disney borrowing from the Legends material. And throughout the book, you'll also see some new characters. Even this character here, this is Vima Deboda, a former Jedi Knight, unfortunately becoming a recluse due to fear of being hunted, and as well as, well, no more Jedi Order. So being a fugitive Jedi, it's almost understood how you can end up like that. Another page to be bookmarked. Now, some other new characters. So at this point, this is Dark Empire 2, and essentially Luke has been gaining more and more knowledge of, Jedi archives, architects, and even working with a fellow former Jedi by the name of Cam Solusar, this gentleman here. You only see the back image of him. Essentially, he was a member of the Dark Side Elite, which were basically the Emperor's personal little Jedi hunting force. Sounds familiar. The Inquisitors that Disney had introduced through the Star Wars Rebels show, as well as Jedi Fallen Order. But also in this image are new apprentices of Luke, or at least aspiring apprentices of Luke. As on his journeys, he visits a world called Ossus. That's where this image takes place. And he meets these two brother and sister Jedi, or should I say Force sensitives, Jem and Rafe. Now, as a matter of fact, Jem kind of acts as a eventual love interest for Luke, but that's another whole story. I'll let you read as to how you don't hear about her or what may have transpired in this book. But anywho, I just bookmarked the final page just to outline that, yeah, the next set of pages are basically the Star Wars Tales line from 2002. So I appreciate they included this, but also, just at the end, they also included the handbook from Rogue Squadron, the comic series. So it's more like information that you can read about certain characters. And I just wanted to bookmark, yes, once again, the World Devastators, but also the other threat in this book, which is the Galaxy Gun. So the Galaxy Gun is very similar in what it does to like Starkiller Base or even the Sith Empire's Star Destroyers, where you fire it and you can basically fire it from anywhere in the galaxy, and the projectiles it fires can actually destroy something on the other side of the universe. Just trying to find that page there for you. Oh, there we go. Yeah, the Galaxy Gun. So this actually does become a severe threat, especially in Dark Empire 2 and Empire's End. So very important aspect of the story for sure. But anywho, at least as of this video, this book thankfully is still readily available. It is decently priced. It's not gone overpriced or anything like that. I won't mention the price because I know how YouTubers can be. They end up inflating the price without realizing it. But nonetheless, definitely a pickup. If you could, try and get, of course, Thrawn Trilogy, and then get this bad boy here. Because the Thrawn Trilogy, basically to me, as growing up as a kid, that was like episode 7 and 8, and this was episode 9. Which is so funny because of the parallels of this book and Disney's episode 9, Rise of Skywalker. But I wouldn't mind hearing your thoughts. Feel free to leave them below. And of course, thank you for tuning in. Take care.